Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Intleacht series, which focuses on the practical AI adoption in the built environment. My name is Alan Hoare, co-founder of the Construction IT Alliance. While the Intleacht series is a CitA initiative, it is deliberately a collaborative initiative. Artificial intelligence is too big, it's moving too fast, and it's too consequential for a single organization or discipline to focus on. So this is why we are working with a group of industry and professional bodies, seven in total, which represents the broad cross-sector of disciplines that operate in the sector. It's great to see such a great turnout today. So the intention this afternoon is to create a shared industry-wide conversation around the practical, grounded and focused adoption of AI in real work. So this morning's event is the first, sorry, this afternoon's event is the first of a six-part series. And our focus today is the foundations, AI, data, and responsible adoption. We're very fortunate to have two eminent speakers. We have Ron Imig. He's a strategist. He's a positive futurologist from Trim Labs Sustainable Works Ireland. We also have Harrison O'Hara, who is Head of Advanced Technology and Innovation. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors today, BAM UK Ireland, NTI Diatech, Cosmos, AKM Design Group, Evercam, and John Paul Construction. If I may, I'm just going to introduce both speakers before they start. Ron, good afternoon. I
Good
welcome to the
afternoon.
screen. Ron is a Dutch-Irish strategist. He's a positive futurologist who helps leaders make sense of disruption and turning this disruption into advantage. He has 4 decades of experience in designing innovation and growth programs for startups, for scale-ups, and for tier one companies. He's the author of 21 books, and he's known for scenario thinking. He's known for entrepreneurship and accelerations that help companies navigate a complex world. And we are living in a complex world. Harrison, good afternoon.
Afternoon, Alan.
Harrison is an innovation leader within BAM Ireland. He's almost 2 decades of industry experience working across some of the UK's largest infrastructure projects, including Crossrail, Thames Tideway, and HS2. He is an MSc in Construction Innovation and Management. He has a track record of implementing company-wide technological solutions, significantly enhancing operational efficiency and delivery across the business of BAM UK Ireland. You are both very welcome. So with that, I'm going to hand over to our speakers in a minute, and I'd encourage all our participants this afternoon to treat this series as a learning space, to ask questions, to challenge the assumptions, and to think about what responsible adoption of artificial intelligence looks like in your own role and your own organization. My role this afternoon is to manage the time, to manage the Q&A, and to finish at 1 p.m. sharp. Thank you, Ron. If you would like to share your presentation with us.
Delighted to be here, Alan. Thank you for the invitation. This is my agenda. This is the agenda. I will start with a number of questions that we normally ask to every client, and it's to illustrate that you cannot see AI in isolation from everything else. I will talk a little bit about a book that I just finished, which is a book about books covering 25 books, some prompts to consider, some questions I would ask, and give you a starting point. My advice is to start. So my presentation is generic, and then Harrison will go more into the specifics. So these are all the questions. You can read them yourself. There's 3 that I think are important. The first one is your organizational clock speed. And what I mean with clock speed is your capability to respond and decide on developments in your environment. And what we find is that the internal clock speed, The decision-making speed is much slower than the speed of the developments outside of your organization. And therein lies the seed of destruction. You need to become incredibly quick to be able to respond. The other one is, the question is, what type of information do you consume, which is about your information dashboard. And this is all about situational awareness. And what I find with all my clients, from the large multinationals to the smaller SMEs and even startups, that most companies are situationally unaware, which means that you can't predict the future. And the last one is business model mapping. And this is particularly relevant in the context of AI. You need to be able to split your organization or your business in small little chunks and then analyze what type of data actually flows through those little chunks. And then almost directly linked to that is what type of data flows through your organization. So split your organization in the smallest parts possible and then reconfigure. These are the books that are in that book. I won't get into all of them. It is a mix of incredibly pessimistic perspectives on AI to super optimistic perspectives on AI. So we're talking dystopia to utopia and anything in between. There's one super interesting one, which is the seventh sense. And that asks the question, if AI has taken over, would we know? So that's just something to think about. But if you translate those 25 books in the number of sort of core findings, the first one is AI is not going to go away. It is here to stay. What AI is doing, it is making everything abstractable. So I work with the Project Management Institute, and that's where we start talking about low code, no code, and building software with Lego. AI is making everything into Lego. So AI is now no longer even Lego. You can literally speak software. You can play Lego with robotics. You can play Lego with 3D printing. You can play Lego with virtual reality. You can play Lego with biology. It just makes everything incredibly easy and accessible for everybody. That means that AI is an accelerator, not only for AI, but for every other technology that you can possibly think about, which means that the speed at which we're starting to operate is nearly hyper exponential, which is just incredibly fast. The key thing you need to understand about AI is a data monster. It lives on data, and you have so data is, it's not AI. Data is everything. And I think you have to presume that most of the AI that you're currently working with have food poisoning, that some of the data is not correct. If acceleration and abstraction comes together, everything becomes the same. So the ultimate way to compete in the future is very likely to be culture. So culture is the last battleground. Do not, it's a long conversation, but I think the future of AI is actually augmented natural intelligence. And there is a very famous futurologist, Michio Kaku, who says that we should never forget the caveman principle, which basically says that we are herd animals. So there's always a human element to everything that we do. And I think at the moment that is incredibly much ignored. Here are some things to think about. Again, data in the building industry. That is a super interesting question, because you have the capability to measure a lot of things. It starts with just smart materials. But in theory, you could actually measure the usage of the buildings or what you build. You can follow the money streams. You can follow maintenance. You can do an enormous amount of different things, which is, I think, is a super interesting thing to consider about. So smart materials. At the moment, everybody talks about Claude, ChatGPT. I think you have to assume that the next wave of AI is going to be narrow AI, which is AI that is very specifically very good at one specific thing. So you're not going to be working with one AI. You're going to have a whole mix of AIs. Imagine an iTunes of little AI applications. You have to consider IoT as part of your business model. I work with Bentley Systems, which is a digital twinning organization. You have to assume that in the future, all the buildings that you're working with will be digitally twinned, which means a 3D digital model of your building at the beginning when you're building it, or even before you build it, but also afterwards. And that, I think, is a really interesting business model in the future for the building industry. As an accelerator, AI will impact on robotics. It will impact on 3D printing. So it's something you need to look at. I think you have to assume that AI will also make everything in the value chain transparent, which means that as a consumer, I know exactly where your margins are going to be. And then this is my favorite hobby horse. The next wave after AI is biomanufacturing. So biomimicry is going to be a super interesting level to look at. In the future, we will be able to grow houses from mushrooms. So you can literally program a mushroom to become a house, and imagine the impact on your business model. Here are some questions. I had this conversation with Alan. If I was doing this all over again, I would become a builder, a plumber, a carpenter, because I think from a skills perspective, it's going to be a long time before robotics take over. You have an interesting question about what the added value is going to be for you in the future, because I think the data that you have at your disposal will allow you to vertically integrate into other people's business models. I think builders could become banks. I think builders could become energy providers. I think builders could predict maintenance. So the amount of data that you can collect from a building is absolutely enormous. So investing in smart materials and the data layers on top of it would be incredibly interesting. So you can extend your business model. What you need to worry about, I think, is the citizen builder, which means that whenever information becomes available. Now, I have complete two left hands, so I wouldn't know a hammer if it hits me, but very soon, with all the technology that is available to me, I could 3D print my own home. So you have to worry about the citizen builder. I think everything was going to be modular to a very, very small, like nearly granular modularity. The opportunity again is in the life cycle management. I do a lot of work in climate change. So I think from an emission perspective, there's lots of things to be done. And I also think there is a compliance issue on the right side and on the good side and on the bad side. So I know there's a lot of technology available that is a lot cheaper than what's currently being used. And what is in the way of that getting adopted is actually regulation. So it's something you need to watch. And then there's also obviously also the AI. What's the word for it? There's an EU law on the use of AI that you need to be aware of as well. So if I were you, I would start with try to become a little bit more situationally aware. So set up a information dashboard, map your business model, look at where the data lies and where you can apply AI, do a little bit of scenario planning once a month, pick a particular topic and imagine the impact on your business model. I would start a pilot. If you want to talk about the clock speed within your organization, the way to do that is by applying a number of guiding principles. So everybody within your organization has 10, 15 guiding principles in which they operate, which could be monitored by AI. In the future, skill augmentation, the combination between you and a robot or an AI is going to be where it's going to lie. And I think you should consider experimentation. And you see that the word failure fund. I work with a lot of innovation directors, and they all would claim that they are allowed to fail. But if you then ask them, how is that expressed in money, they would never be able to answer. So you should express a failure fund. So literally put a budget on how money you are willing to lose. It could be 1,000 euros, could be 10,000 euros, but give it a number so people understand that making mistakes that cost money is not a bad thing. And it's absolutely essential if you want to implement experimentation. What you cannot do, and I mean this genuinely, you can no longer ignore AI. It is not going to go away, and it's only going to get more and more sophisticated. So if you want to go back to the pilot, map your data stream, and there are many within in your organization. Find one that you find most interesting. You can take all kinds of perspective from a competitive, from a compliance, from an opportunity perspective. See that within that tiny data point where you can apply AI, start very, very small. Keep it safe and simple. I work with a number of ERP companies in Germany. AI is energy dependent. If the energy goes, the AI goes. So you need to keep it simple and safe before you start applying this big time in your organization. Experiment. And Alan and I had this conversation. Would you hire a consultant? And like with e-commerce and website design, I think this is so fundamental to your organization that I would strongly suggest that you do it yourself with your team and learn how this actually works. Here, so the questions are after Harrison's presentation, but always feel free to reach out. So here are my contact details. Thank you.
Ron, that was a perfect introductory message. Thank you so much. It's really interesting you talk about AI, specialist AI solutions. You could see discipline-specific AI solutions, couldn't you, in design and cost management, commercial, operational maintenance, construction. Um,
Yes,
Very,
so
very
they
intelligent
now
disciplines.
they use it. Large language models
Mm.
is a problem, but small language models are actually where it's going
Yeah.
to go.
Anyway, listen, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much. You did a wonderful job. Moving on to Harrison, we're now going to get into the trenches, so to speak, in construction. Harrison, over to you.
Thanks, Helen. Really interesting presentation, Ron. I like the
Thank you.
idea of a failure fund. I'd quite like one of those myself, actually.
Yes, of course.
But Alan, thank you for the opportunity for speaking today. Conscious that we've only got 20 minutes, but hopefully this will give you a sort of a flavor of where I see our industry is at the moment and some helpful proactive steps that our businesses can take to at least get us started on this AI journey that we're all about to embark on. So just as by way of introduction, my name's Harrison O'Hara. I'm Head of Advancing Technology and Innovation at BAM. I've spent a career in the construction industry trying to drag it out of the industrial era and into this digital era that we're moving into, kicking and screaming, may I add. But had a lot of fun along the way. I've worked in the industry for nearly 2 decades now, as Alan said, on some of the largest UK infrastructure projects. When I joined the industry, which was probably around 2007, it was at a time when mobile technology was being introduced to the industry, which was probably the last sort of transformational innovation that was introduced to our industry. And I've seen the speed at which our industry responds to change, especially disruptive change in the digital and technology space. And it's fair to say I'm a little bit concerned, but I want this to be a positive presentation, but also one that looks at the reality that our industry is facing over the next 5 years. But having that positive mindset just in the back of your minds when I'm going through these challenges that our industry are going to be facing over the next 5 years, just consider about how AI might counter some of those challenges and how we can have a positive spin on AI actually coming to massively help out the challenges facing our industry. So as an industry, we are stood on the edge of a retirement cliff edge. And quite frankly, we're about to jump. The figures show that by 2031, some 41% of our industry are due to retire, which is significant, especially when you combine that with the challenge we have at the other end of the spectrum, and there's a huge skills gap. With a critical shortage of under 25s joining our industry, it makes up less than 7% of our workforce. And the CITP have forecast that we need an extra 240,000 workers in construction to meet the pipeline over the next 5 years. On top of that, other major issues facing our industry is we've got obviously climate change is a huge priority nationally and for all of our customers that we work for in the industry. We also fall victim to economic volatility. We have tariffs over the other side of the pond, global wars here in Europe and Middle East, government changes. All of this results in supply chain uncertainty, material cost rises. We have cybersecurity threats. We saw what happened last year with Jaguar Land Rover, Marks and Spencer's. How resilient is the digital infrastructure that holds up construction industries and the rest of the industries in the market? As an industry, we've been digitally immature, I'd say, but that is moving rapidly. And the other thing we have to consider is the rapid pace at which this technology is developing, and are we rife for a major digital disruption? So sorry to start on a bit of a negative, but luckily we have a superhero waiting in the wings in the form of AI. And the last great hope for the construction industry, I think we all remember a little thing called BIM. That was the UK government mandate came in 2016. It was March 2016, so pretty much to the date 10 years ago. And has our industry been saved by BIM? I think it's definitely kept digital on the agenda. It's become mandated across all of our projects. Our clients are now have digital requirements within all the contracts. And thank God it has, because can you imagine where we would be now trying to keep up with AI if we didn't have that mandate in? Now, the truth is we will not have that same luxury of time when it comes to AI. And why is that? You know, AI is not a construction technology. We're not talking about the next BIM here. We're not talking about digital twinning or 4D modeling. This is very much a global technology that is impacting the very society that we live in. And there's pressure from everyone to make sure that we're making the most of this technology and really leveraging it within our businesses. So I said I'll keep this positive, and some good news here around the industry adoption. From 2023, the industry adoption was as low as 15%, and that has now accelerated to 75% in 2025. So that's a 42% year-on-year increase. And those figures really tell a story, one of momentum, but also inevitability. This is the cat is very much out of the box, and this is coming to our industries. I will take those numbers with a pinch of salt because it is around adoption, and there is definitely a difference between I have used ChatGPT before and I've fully integrated AI into my everyday work life and improving operationally how I work. So it'll be interesting to see those figures around maturity, because that is definitely uneven across our industry. But I do strongly believe that the decisions that we make in terms of adoption in 2026 will affect our competitive advantage in 27, 28. And why is that? Because capability takes time to build, putting the platforms, integration and governance all in place as businesses. This doesn't happen overnight. Digital silos will only compound as the importance of fully integrated data becomes more important as we try and layer these AI solutions across all of our organizations. And digital maturity, the teams that learn early and learn fast will benefit, and those late movers will pay a premium. So with all this benefit of AI, why are people still looking the other way? I'm involved in AI every day in my work life, and I can't imagine actually working without it now. But I'm fortunate enough in my role that I get to travel around the business and talk to a lot of people on different projects and in different parts of the business. And the reality is that there are still people who haven't used AI yet, and don't think it's relevant to them and think it's this fad that will go away. And I'm not talking about, the still fixers or the carpenters out on site. I'm talking about heads of departments who are still naive to the opportunity that AI brings. And I have quite a fortunate job in that I can go around and educate people on these benefits and take them on the journey, which is honestly a real pleasure to do. Cost implications is always going to be a challenge for our industry. We operate in a low margin industry with a low risk appetite. But this is no longer a nice to have. So that failure fund sounds very attractive, in order to help us make sure that we can accelerate in a way that's best suited to our businesses. And the rest of these issues, I really don't see them as long-standing issues. As the technology improves and that adoption rate really increases, we spoke about the 75% in 2025 on the last slide. That's due to increase to 85% this year. My main concern is how closely that remaining 15% in adoption terms is linked to the highest positions in our industry, who are ultimately the decision makers, the budget holders, and the ones that can really make that transformational change. So I guess it's our job as those who are most interested in AI in the industry to make sure that sense of urgency and importance is then shared with the leaders within our organization. Now, as tier one contractors in the construction industry, I think there are three sort of main options on the table when it comes to deploying AI solutions within your businesses. And that is enterprise solutions, so working with the technology vendors who are already embedded and working within your industries. That's proprietary development, internal development, and then that's working with specialist vendors. And I'm not going to be able to tell you the best combination of solutions that's going to work for your organizations. That's going to be very unique and dependent on a number of factors. But as a general useful rule of thumb, if it's a commodity AI solution, so an absolute must-have, then definitely buy or use the enterprise solutions that you've got in your organization. If you see this AI capability as a source of competitive advantage, then spend the effort and time on building that internally. And if it requires deep specialization and you don't have the luxury of time to hire in quickly the expertise, then partner with the right strategic vendors, but just be very careful about IP and data ownership. But these three solutions are all things that are almost market ready, off the shelf solutions. And I think the things that are really going to set businesses apart going forward are the things that underpin those solutions that sit on top of those. And those three things are really around a unified data layer. So a data strategy that goes beyond just commercial and program data, but considers all of all of the project data that exists within your organizations, ensuring that these solutions fit into a wider ecosystem of your organizations. This is all about system integration, and systems that are closed off or you can't get access to the data or requires a separate login are going to start being spotlighted because of their inability to integrate with this ecosystem approach that we're trying to achieve, that these AI systems can really thrive on. And AI needs to be built into your corporate strategies. Now, this is by no means an exhaustive list of all of the areas, but based on some quick market research using some AI tools, this is where up until now AI companies have been placing their bets in terms of the impact that AI can have on those companies. And at the top, it's all around administrative tasks and general productivity, which is really around a reduction in time spent on your routine admin tasks. So tasks that would have previously taken you hours is now literally down to minutes. And I guess why that's so applicable is because it's not just relevant to one department or one discipline, but that's something that could impact literally everyone in your business. And just as way of a sort of practical example, we're a Microsoft organization. We're rolling out Copilot within our organization, and just how that's transformed the way that we have meetings now as a business. You're using the AI to generate your agenda. You're using the AI then to facilitate the conversation and the meeting itself, and then also for generating the minutes and the actions that follow. That's something that impacts everyone every day of their working life, and the benefits that we're seeing from that is just astonishing. I'll go through some of these, but not all of them. But knowledge sharing as an industry, I think it's something we do well in terms of we document the knowledge. We've got processes in place for doing that. But then actually getting the knowledge to the right people at the right time is something that we're quite poor on. And I think AI has a big place to play there in terms of really making sure that that knowledge gets to the right people at the right time. Work winning is, in my mind, another sort of broken process within our industry, and sometimes can be the downfall of a lot of projects around the time, the rapid pace at which tenders and bids need to be pulled together. And using AI can really make sure that we're putting our best foot forward and making sure that people are spending the time on the high value critical activities during that work winning process. And then around project management, I think gone are the days where we're going to have to be waiting for monthly reports, custom dashboards. AI is democratizing data insight and giving everyone access to the information that they need at the right time and delivered in a way that's custom to the individual. And some of the really neat AI applications that we've seen in the industry is around using visual intelligence and linking that back to the program. So taking 360 images out on our sites, and then the AI can understand exactly how quickly the project is progressing, understand the rate at which we're working, and then compare that with the BIM model and also the construction programs to give you a completely objective view of performance and how your projects are progressing. That's transforming project management, collaboration, stakeholder engagement, and the way that we manage our projects. Now, I know this seems like quite a counterintuitive statement to put on an AI presentation, but this is the truth. This is MIT Media's Labs quoted that last year, 95% of corporate AI initiatives showed zero returns. And I think there's two important messages here. Is one, 5% of them are succeeding. So what do we need to do to become part of that 5%? And another interesting insight that came out of that, it was never the technology that let down the return, but it was all around how the technology was implemented, the people who were implementing it, and how they embedded that into their business processes to then make sure it was showing return and making a real impact in the business. So it wasn't the technology that's letting them down, but more around how that technology was implemented. So how do you become part of that 5%? And I think there's four main pillars here to really make sure that you put in the right foundations to become part of that 5%. AI will succeed or fail on the quality and accessibility of your data. And data is not a digital problem, it's not an IT problem, but this is an organizational asset, and it needs to be a top priority for all departments within your organizations. And the analogy I like to bring on is you imagine AI as the engine, data is very much the fuel to make that engine operate. Workflows need to be embedded into, AI needs to be embedded into your workflows. And this isn't about shoehorning AI into existing processes that you've got. This is about having a technology-led approach to how you want to operate and create processes within your organization to really make sure that you're transforming the way that you operate to make sure that AI is having the biggest impact that it can. And AI is only going to succeed with strong leadership. This can't be driven from the bottom up. This is about business transformation, and it needs the attention of everyone in your organization. The leaders in your organization will set the pace and the ambition for your organizations. They will ensure alignment across all of your divisions that this is important. They will remove those organizational blockers or naysayers that exist within your organization. And also it's about communicating the why we're doing this, and not just the what. Because I think without good leadership, AI will become fragmented, inconsistent, and ultimately unsustainable. And then just finally, just talk about strategic partnerships. I think in construction, we can be guilty sometimes of thinking we can manage construction projects and software development as well. And at the pace and rate at which this technology is developing at, we just won't be able to do it without strong strategic partnerships. So work with your technology vendors, and work closely with them to make sure that you're making the most of the technology solutions that exist within your organizations. Now, I'll just want to go through some of the foundational steps that your organization can take today to really help you get kick-started on your AI journey. And I'll just start with a Formula One analogy, if you'll allow me. When the engineering teams are trying to get the best lap times for their Formula One car, they aren't just focusing on acceleration, and they're also focusing on the brakes. And I think the same thing can be applied here for AI. By just releasing AI into your organizations without any guidance, policy, framework in place, you're going to run the risk of derailing your organizations, because a damage to reputation, a loss of information, you can imagine trying to get your leadership buy-in after one of those things that happen is going to be very difficult. So at BAM, we've done 3 steps last year, and we've updated our acceptable use policy from an IT perspective, stating what we expect people to do with BAM information, what tools we expect them to be using, and how we want to be doing that. We've updated our supplier resilience questionnaire. So for all new vendors that we're working on, there's a specific section on AI risk to understand what they plan to do with our data, what AI systems they're using, and how they're managing that within their organizations, because we need to make sure that this is managed at all levels throughout your organization, including your supply chain. And we've also issued out a BAM AI instruction. We're a Dutch-owned business. We need to make sure that we're in line with the EU AI Act, and that's exactly what the artificial intelligence instruction does. And it lists out all the different levels of risk profiles that are contained within that EU AI Act, and the governance that you need to put in place, things that we absolutely cannot do, and things that we can do if they're done in a well-governed and well-managed way. Seems like an obvious thing to say, but sometimes it is overlooked, especially working with things like Microsoft. Copilot was very much just slipped in last year as a little icon that would appear on your laptops. Making sure that your people are trained on how to get the best out of AI is really important. The analogy I used previously around if AI is the engine, data is the fuel, well, guess who the drivers are? That are the people within your organization, and just expecting them to understand how to use AI, what AI is, what good prompting looks like, how to get the best out of the tools is unrealistic that they're going to be doing that off their own back. So you need to make sure that you're investing time, effort, resource, and expertise in really upskilling your people. So at BAM, we've got what we're calling a frequent flyers club for our co-pilot training, which teaches them all about what AI is, what the risks are, but also what good prompting looks like, what makes up a good prompt, and then how we want to see it being applied in our business. And we're also leaning on some of our other technology vendors like Autodesk, who are now introducing AI capability across their platform. And they're also loaning out experts on their new AI capability to then give us coaching within our businesses. So I'd also encourage you to do the same. And I said this before, but we need to make sure that we're embedding AI into our corporate strategies. This is going to become as important as health and safety, environmental, and our commercial results. I think market investors are going to look at corporate strategies going forward to see what the approach is to AI, and not having AI as part of your strategy, I think will be seen as a risk by market investors. I think that's all I'm going to take you through today. And I think if I just want to leave on a message, I want to just say that AI is no longer distant possibility, but it's very much here today, affecting the very projects that we live in. And I think organizations that act fast and invest in their data and the partnerships are really going to succeed in this technology era. And I know that it's moving at a pace that can feel quite daunting at times. But the prospect of doing nothing is a lot more frightening to me than the prospect of trying to really embrace this. So thank you for today, and really looking forward, Alan, to the rest of the sessions in the series that you've got.
Thank you.
But that's all from me, and I'll hand back to Alan now.
And thank you for the support from BAM. Harrison, you did a fantastic job. I really enjoyed it was engaging, it was pragmatic. You took a complex subject and you made it clear, you made it relevant, real world examples. It definitely sparked a number of ideas in my mind, and I'm sure with the delegates as well. I think leadership is key, and as you said, market investors will look at this, but I think clients, insurers, regulators will demand clear AI usage policies in the future. So avoid it at your peril. It's been a wonderful experience today. Thank you so much to Ron and Harrison for presentations. This is the first of our 6 events. I just wanted to share with you, for those of you who are joining us today, that we will be back on the 26th of March for event 2, moving into the area of generative design planning and early stage decision making. So we'll be announcing our speakers in the next week or two. I just want to chat a few minutes about the 2 major projects that we're working on within the CitA family, and that is SkillNet MMC Accelerate. I know, Ron, you mentioned modularization, offsite solutions this morning, and we have a significant project, SkillNet MMC Accelerate. We've built a national platform called SkillNet MMC Accelerate. We've got, I think it's 7 job families, 131 job roles, 350 courses for opportunities in the MMC sector, and we've got a series of business support events, and the next one is taking place on the 25th of March in O'Reilly Precast in Cavan, if any of you are nearby. We've just gone through procurement with our CitA SkillNet 26 training and funding opportunity. There's up to 40% funding available for eligible Irish businesses. And you can see that AI is very much featuring this year. But, you know, as Harrison mentioned, BIM is still very much in the forefront, lean construction, practical technical skills, and so on. What a wonderful afternoon it's been. Ron and Harrison, you have been amazing speakers. Thank you so much. The quality was world class.